I want to showcase an update to our Player XG tool, a tool used by people to get an edge in Anytime Goal Scorer, first goal scorer at the exchanges and at the bookmakers. So here we have some games tonight, various different leagues. I'm going to click on not kicked off actually. We see coming up, we've got Atalanta coming, we've got Italian Serie A, team news is in there from an API, as well as La Liga and Premier League. Now look, we get an API for team news. Sometimes they send us the wrong player. We did have an example where Mbappe's brother was sent instead of Kylian Mbappe. Good grief, that messed up a lot of the model. For the most part, they get it right, but just not 100% of the time. And then there's some leagues they don't send anything because, well, we can't get our hands on it. So Fleetwood Town versus Morecambe is an example of a league where we don't have an get any team news. But now, not only can we add team news, but we can crowdsource it from our user base and we can save it for other members if we are so inclined. It's a bit of charity work. That's the way that you swing. So if I go into players, see all the different players here. Now there's no lineup being included, so we have an anytime goal scorer for Ryan Graydon, who is the most likely to score with 0.39 XG out of 2.89 in this game. And I can add lineups. I can even load lineups from before. I tested this earlier, so I've got a lineup from before. But for now, I can go to any reputable source. Let's try Flash Scores. I could use BBC. I could use Who Scored. I'm just going to rearrange these windows. Okay, so here I have my my Fleetwood versus Morecambe lineup on the left. Now there's 20 minutes to the start of this game, but I can now go through these players. I can go through Wiredu. He was the most complicated one, of course. Brendan Sarpong Wiredu. Bennett and Bonds. They're all in alphabetical order. Johnston. Helm and Mayer. Now these are sort of appearing at random here. I mean, these guys are probably defenders and I'm putting them in at the back. If I'd started from the bottom, actually, I would have solved that problem. So Coughlin, Graydon. It doesn't really matter how they appear in here yet. In the future, we're going to have the ability to drag XG from one player to another. But for just now, you've got to get through. I'm missing one player. I've just got to figure out who he is. 1 second. And it's Bolton. Okay, in the away team, we've got Millen, Williams and Stott. And we've got Lewis, Jones and Songo. I don't think this takes too long to add in. Did get some feedback that it takes too long, but I don't think it does. And finally, Tollit, McAdam, Lewis and Angol. 2 Lewises, actually. Should have been careful there. Which Lewis have I already got? Adam Lewis. It's Paul Lewis and Angol. And we don't need to enter the goalkeeper because they never have any XG. Now, before we would have a normalized now, but just because I've added in 20 different players, we've got the bookie bashing anytime goal scorer column, and it looks like the markets have pretty much got that right. These are fairly similar numbers. We make Mark Helm 4.2, 4.1 traded on the exchange. We make Graydon 3.17, 3.1 traded on the exchange. I mean, that's technically a lay, but it's very, very thin. Now, I've added this lineup. One new thing that I can do now, if I scroll to the top, is I can save this lineup. Now, I've already saved one for this, because then I can come back to it later. So I'm just going to call this lineup 2. And I can not just save this for myself, but I can save this for everyone by clicking this button. Save for everyone. We saw the little circle go there. And now that means that this will appear on everybody else's screens. And if I've made a mistake, I can just take this player out and put the correct player in by placing this X. So that just shows how we can add and correct lineups, not just for ourselves, but crowdsourcing the information from our user base. So if anyone spots an error, they can change it without sending a message into support. Just a little postscript to this video. Someone has asked the question, legitimately, what would happen if someone, was a bad actor and they started removing players that were starting and putting in players that weren't starting to try and change the EV for everyone. Well, right at the top here, it says lineups have been edited by test user. Now, the account that I'm using right now is not my admin account. It's a test user account. But let's say you have a account with Bookie Bashing Joe Blogs, then it would say lineups edited not by your name but by your username Joe Blogs, and that's just going to allow us to keep tabs on who's making changes, and if anyone's repeatedly making the wrong changes, we will be able to track who they are. But you know what? We have a number of different user crowdsourcing tools at bookiebashing, from updating prices on the coupon tracker to the bet tracker, and no one ever does this maliciously, so I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, just in case, if you want to know who has edited the team news, there's a little notification at the top of the screen to let you know who has done it. So this information is useful for a variety of reasons. On the exchange, we would be looking to back higher than 3.17 and lay lower than 3.17. We can see some price movements here, so we can see Mark Helm has steamed in. Sometimes it's interesting betting on these steamers and chasing them. I mean, 140% steam there for Mark. We can see the Betfred first goal scorer odds and the neutral odds. So the closest is Danny Mayer. He is 11-1 at Betfred, but we would have needed 12.5 because 12.17 is the neutral odds for him to be plus EV. This is quite useful when there's no exchange market and Betfred are doing, fairly obscure games. We can get a fair price for each of these players, and we can see if the DDHH is any good. And we've got our own first goal scorers here, so nothing's traded on the exchange, I can see, but 8.2 we would want to be backing higher than that, but commonly we're able to lay lower than that, especially in something like a recreational first goal scorer market on the exchange. There's a lot of laying value to be had. 2+ for Graydon is 15.82 and 3+ 112 if we can find any value backing higher than that at the exchange or the bookmakers. So it's the composition of these lineups that's got these odds for us, and we can also check out scorecasts and anytime scorecast, wincasts, score and assist, although we don't have any assist numbers for a League 2 game, but if we did, they would appear here, and a variety of different markets using the player XG tool at bookiebashing.net.